Sarah Wirtz, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How is life of confinement treating you?
It's going well. We're hanging in there. Certainly in the second half, it's been a little bit easier, but we're good. Here with the family, with the kids and 4-year-old twins and a 7-year-old son at home and homeschooling. So doing all right.
How's the homeschooling going? I mean, that's something that I don't think any of us really thought we'd be doing right now, but I think that has the chance to have a better or a bigger psychological impact on our children than anything of this entire situation, in my opinion.
Yes, yes. No, it's going well. The school has been extremely organized with it, and the my son has really taken to it, and even the preschoolers, they've brought into little packets of each week so they can work on it. But and then they get to see their friends over, like the messenger kids and Zoom calls, so they get that interaction. But they certainly miss the school portion of it and their friends and everybody at school and their teachers. But we're doing all right. I wanted to be a teacher when I first came out of college, or started college. So it's my way of giving back a little bit.
Are you still feeling that way after the last couple months? Still?
No, I'm really glad where I'm at.
Got it out of your system.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of value for teachers, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, I kind of want to talk all things, contractors, CPL, what's going on. So I'm kind of curious, what is happening overall? Like, what are you hearing? What are some of the conversations that are coming across your desk on a regular basis? As far as it seems like we might be getting back to somewhat normal, I guess, here shortly. What are your thoughts on that? And what can we kind of anticipate in terms of an insurance standpoint?
Sure. Yeah, so we've seen, construction in some cities and states has resumed, has gone, has not stopped. Some considered essential, and some states the projects have been delayed or shut down. So we have seen where some of these projects where they're increased, they've decreased some of their payroll and decreased some of the revenue that they've had. So we've had to do some tweaks on some current renewals or any new business that we've had quoted in the past, and also help on some maybe minimum deposits as well as the extensions and some business, just to help the insured during this process. The excess market is really where it's getting a little tough out there, especially if the contractor has a fleet, any auto fleet. The umbrella market, including if there was maybe 2 or 3 carriers on a layer, on a tower, then it would maybe 4 or 5 or 6 now, because a lot of these carriers are cutting back capacity and offering shorter limits or maybe even higher attachment points. And most of the premiums have also increased. So we are also getting hit with that on that. The contractors are getting hit on that side of it. So it's been challenging for some, but we at RPS have been helping as much as we can with our expertise and our relationships with our markets to get the clients coverage according to what they need.
So what have you been seeing? Sort of how have agents been adjusting to that and kind of working around it? I'm assuming probably a little more lead time possibly to get some things done. Any sort of kind of extra communication that you found helpful in the process? Like what's helping get these things through sooner, faster, quicker, all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Our ability to communicate immediately with our clients. I mean, we start our process, maybe 4 or 5 months out, if not even earlier than that. But we've been definitely communicating with our markets, letting them, asking them what their thoughts are about what their renewal is going to look like, and what the market is or how their reinsurance has come across. And then we make sure that our clients know so that they can let the insureds know. Things are changing by the minute. So things, that we might have known maybe a month or 2 ago may not be the case right now. So obviously constant communication and keeping them up to date is key. Expertise as well as creativity on our part or any of the brokers' parts is also helpful. Maybe doing, certain things within the program, tiered rating or, whatever it is to help out really, really helps. But a submission, as much information as possible that the agents can gather from their insureds makes things so much easier for us then to communicate to the underwriters, because the more ammunition and the more information that they're armed with sometimes could really help us out.
So I like the word creativity. What has been sort of your most creative work so far dealing with an agent submission? Like where are we going with these in terms of like how creative do we have to get to make things work?
Yeah, we've helped with just with current programs, and then if they're starting renewals. So just helping with like say extensions or like lowering the revenue, and then maybe getting a lower rate then once the revenue then increases. Once they come start back up again. So there's just different ways for each case by case. Offering vacant properties or vacant buildings until further lease before they start. So maybe the cash flow is not right there at that time. So it's just there's just different ways of maybe quota sharing layers or and having carriers partner together on risks as well.
And how and I guess I don't know if I heard you mention numbers. There's sort of a sweet spot in terms of how many people you're going to need to bring in on like you said, to partner on those risks. Is there something that agents should be expecting to kind of at least we're going to need this number of people involved to kind of get these through a little bit more easily?
No, I mean, it all just depends as far as the towers, as well as what limits they currently purchase and what limits they're going to be wanting to purchase in the future. And sometimes on, say, a primary basis where carriers were looking for a 1 million, 2 million, 2 million, some are looking for a 244 attachment point, or even maybe a 2 million CSL on the auto versus a 1 million. So they should, be prepared for some of that, and maybe having to ask their carriers that if it's not something that is in the wholesale market. On the excess basis, again, there are carriers that were putting up $25 million in limits. They might only be putting up 5 million or 10 million. So again, it might be 4 or 5 carriers, but it all depends on what limits they carry. But it's just that the capacity has shrunk dramatically for each of these carriers. The higher on the tower up, depending upon what class of business and what the auto fleet and some other exposures are depending upon what limit the carriers are providing.
Now, are we? That's an interesting point. Are we seeing limits kind of stay the same? Are we looking for our agents and contractors looking for higher limits now, or are they looking to kind of go lower in some cases? Where is that sweet spot? What's kind of the best approach right now with how everything's shaking out?
Sure. We've had some renewals, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, that they purchased larger towers like the 25 million and they or 50 million. They only ended up purchasing maybe the 35 or 40 million. So some of them did pull back, and these are larger companies. Some of them are staying the same, and then some are maybe not purchasing at all, depending upon their size and what they have going on in the projects right now. But most have stayed status quo because they still realize that they have the exposure and that some catastrophic event or something that could seriously hurt their organization and their business. So it just depends, again, case by case, but we have seen some scale back. So yes, the reduction in limits that they've purchased has been there.
Now, is there a type of kind of contractor type of work that you think might be a little more advantageous here initially out of the gate, like where people are going to be getting back to work at a bigger pace? Again, some haven't paused at all, but is there going to be a need? I guess where I'm going with this is, could an agent look to possibly zero in on a particular type of contractor or construction company that might have an opportunity to do some different work than maybe before? Is there any possibility for that? Are you seeing anything like that?
Yeah. So we're seeing more, I'm thinking in the construction space, a lot more residential construction is going on right now. I feel like that's still status quo or even increased. I think the utility and gas plants, construction is there. Miraculously, some of the airport construction is still going on now, and that because that already had started. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to be because of all the airlines and what's going to happen there. But the roofing contractors, crane equipment rentals, of course, like right now too, like landscapers, anything outside, janitorial contractors, and we've been seeing a lot of fire restoration contractors, especially in the environmental space. So the fire and restoration contractors right now are going in and reactively and proactively cleaning, even any schools or residential or any medical facilities, any type of facility right now, especially while people maybe are not there. while the shutdown has occurred. So we have an influx of submissions that have come through on some operations that are currently doing cleaning that may not be obviously doing disinfection, but some that just wanted to start up. The startups right now are almost impossible to insure. There might be a couple of carriers that, at high minimum premiums, if there is some sort of certification and experience there, that they would help. But otherwise, we do have a couple of key markets that are helping, especially with the cleanup of COVID and offering like defense coverage for that. So that has been really helpful by adding some endorsements and to the policies for these restoration contractors and more industrial cleaning contractors.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was kind of curious myself. I mean, what does that look like? I mean, one, it sounds like there is an opportunity for that type of work to probably take off even more as companies, as they get back, probably going to implement, more stricter sort of sanitary measures. Are probably going to be cleaning things more often.
Right.
But at the same time, like, is there going to be any added liability to the contractors themselves? I mean, what are they going to have to go through to make
Yes.
sure that they're performing a job at a level that is kind of demanded now in this new world that is approaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is definitely the number one question a lot of these carriers are asking. What experience do they have? What kind of programs or certifications that they have in order to perform this type of work? Because some people are looking at this as an opportunity and they'll do more harm than good and cause bodily injury and property damage if they don't do it correctly. So there are certifications, including, if it's just proactive, it's IICRC 520. I think that is the main certification that they're asking for, or something equivalent of. And if it's the proactive, the remedial, more that, they've found, or they know that there has been a case, they would like to have the IRCRC 540 certification. That's a little bit more in depth for that type of disinfection and hazmat cleanup. So yes, there's certain, for the biohazard cleanup and remediation, there's a lot more to it and a lot of different scenarios and things that you have to make sure that the carrier is comfortable with in order for them to say that they will ensure possibly having the defense coverage for it. And again, at that time, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I know at that time, it's really even too, it's so new, and there's so many different facets and so many different scenarios and exposures to this COVID-19 and pandemic that, it would all depend on exactly, all the details of if there was a claim to come in. Of course, I'm not a claims person or lawyer, so I can't comment on that. And either can even the underwriters at some points, because each claim would have to be handled differently, and all of the scenarios and all of the details of that claim would have to be handled and reviewed by the jurisdiction, the judge, and making sure of all the probable cause. So exactly, who went into that facility, at the same time as right after the contractor, and how exactly was things caused. So there's a lot of things to think about, when this is all going on, but at least it gives some of these contractors a little bit peace of mind that they possibly might have, if they do get brought into something, that maybe they could, get some relief from it.
Yeah, I was curious what's kind of been the experience like with the carriers. I mean, how easy is that kind of process been communicating that sort of extra layer of information, certifications, all that good stuff, like you said, more complete submissions, all that back and forth. Have you seen any sort of slowdowns in terms of like getting this like kind of to them? Is there any extra questioning that, is maybe catching up some submissions, like with just, again, having to, prove these sort of certifications?
Sure. Some of them have been easier than others, because we've been working with some of the franchises that already, have the certifications or know about them, and some of the agents that are already, do know about it. So that has been a little bit easier. And then some obviously are learning just like, everybody else. So, but they'll know right away if they have the certifications. They kind of let us know what the experience is. We'll let the underwriter know this is what they have. Could it be something equivalent? And then they'll come back right away and let us know if it's yes or no. And then we'll let them know what they need to do. And then if that's something that they want to go for and of all the schooling or the, expertise, then, then they can go forward with it. But yeah, some has been easier than others.
So, what do you think looking forward, like if you had to kind of lay out a little mini roadmap for agents in terms of just kind of preparing for kind of, renewals, new business, is there any sort of just overall key tips that you would have for them in terms of maintaining sort of the level of activity they might have been accustomed to prior to all this? How are they going to work more efficiently in this environment? And what would your sort of kind of overall suggestions be?
Sure. I can mention, so, obviously right now things have been, some things are going to be starting back up again, some are not. Would also ask, especially in the environmental space or even liability, that my concern, and I think some other writers' concern as well, is some of these jobs that were shut down, were they shut properly, and what kind of claims are going to be coming from that, right? So was there framing that was covered, or was it all covered? Could the mold be coming through, some of the Legionnaire law? So there's just different things that, make sure you find the agents could find out from their insureds exactly, how it was shut down, what had been the precaution, the protocols of starting back up, figuring out what sort of, revenue that they really think that is going to be, an accurate revenue. I know it's really hard to tell right now, but that way we can help them with trying to figure out a creative way, like we mentioned, with trying to, get them insured accurately. And then again, all the different information, as much loss information as you possibly can, all the details of their expertise and experience, supplemental application as well as accord applications are always wonderful to have, because it just gives a little bit more information. And then time and just a communication. Again, communication is key. And that's something that I'm very proud of, that our service has not been affected at all by this. RPS has been wonderful. Our agents have been great, and we've been trying to help as much as we can, throughout this whole process. And if it's not something that myself or my team or anybody else within the organization can do, we always cross-sell or try to make sure that we're passing them off to another specialized broker within our PS or program. So it doesn't end at someone's desk if they can't help. It's amazing what our organization has done over the years of trying to make sure that somebody in our organization hopefully should be able to have an answer for that agent and that insured.
Have you seen any good examples of that come through in terms of just getting a deal pushed through, or just again, just has things getting back to kind of normal, whatever that means? Any good examples of kind of that RPS sort of ways that we were kind of able to kind of get things done?
Sure, absolutely. So there's brokerage and binding. So I know that we're talking a lot more these days as well, just to see if there's some of these artists and these artists and contractors that might have maybe really fell into the brokerage. Maybe now is more of like a brokerage light, and have more binding markets that can help with some lower minimum premiums, and able to quote and bind in-house with one of their markets. So there is a lot more communication between binding and brokerage these days. And also just with the program unit, just trying to make sure if somebody comes to us, we can check with them to see if there's anything else that can happen. But right now it's the brokerage binding, I think, that we really have helped. Also between, our healthcare division is amazing. So, we've also been sending, some referrals that way as well. And we've received some on the environmental side because of all the COVID, of all the cleanup with the restoration contractors. So we've helped different offices across the country arm their agents with some knowledge about this specific product.
Interesting. I'm curious. What does that healthcare referral look like? I'm a health insurance guy by trade, but what are you looking for when you're sending business back and forth to each other?
Sure. Like if it's there was healthcare staffing, so we sent it there, staffing for healthcare professionals. I'm trying to think of what else there was, but any home health or any of these hospitals, any medical facilities, and sometimes they send us a medical facility, but maybe thinking that it was just liability, but they are doing some professional liability. Obviously some healthcare are on staff, so then we'll send that over to the healthcare division. But I mean, it all depends on the case by case. But we're always looking to make sure that we can help another division if it's not something we can help with.
So I got two more questions for you, Sarah. I've never asked you this one. I'm kind of curious of the answer. If you had to outline your sweet spot in terms of a type of contractor or sort of risk that you would go after in terms of premium's good, underwriting's good, just getting things through easily. It's quick. Agents, have a decent time handling it. The actual end client is usually receptive. What's your sweet spot in terms of like a ideal client for an agent to kind of go after these days?
Oh, I mean, that runs the gamut. I think that as far as, we've been seeing some, street and road contractors. We've been successful in roofing contractors. Again, the restoration right now, any, commercial, the cranes, we've been seeing some access on crane rental and equipment. I'm trying to think of what else, utility contractors. Yeah, I think that it still runs right now. It's really on the umbrella access market that we've been seeing a lot more of the opportunities. So I think, anything with umbrella towers, we certainly have the expertise or primary.
All right, Sarah, we've talked about a lot of different stuff, but I'm always kind of fascinated in terms of just if you had to pick one thing that you would want agents to kind of do to be more effective with everything, just if you gave them one thing that they had to do to just kind of increase their likelihood to kind of close more deals, what's the one thing that you'd want them to kind of be doing, educating their clients on during this time to kind of improve everything?
I would like to, again, with our communication, just making sure that we're communicating what we think is going to happen with the rates, but just making sure that they're letting their clients know early enough as well. Sometimes I feel we're putting that message through the agents, but then there's always some hope that maybe things are going to change, which sometimes it does. But I think that the insureds need to know right away, what might be the case, and then obviously we work from there. But just the amount of information that we can have, arming us with as much information as we possibly can have in complete submissions, complete applications, and the market access is also another avenue. And there are some markets that can go retail as well as wholesale. They have dual distribution. And sometimes, as we all want, we always try to have that control and go direct to some markets. But sometimes those, the E&S markets might have a better appetite for some of these insureds than maybe some of the other standards. So maybe constant communication between just what the markets are saying in that aspect. And then maybe if they decline on that agency side and on the standard market side, then maybe we've had success in that, and then trying the E&S division of that same carrier. And we've written accounts that way. So maybe just more communication before we actually approach markets and figure out where the relationship is and where best the insured would fit in between each of the divisions, if that makes sense.
It certainly does, Sarah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. I appreciate your time as well.